Hello everyone, this video is gonna be a weird one. I wanna make a tier list because the last tier list I made was over a month and a little bit ago, I think, and it was using the weird graphical thing that it was not, I wanted to try to make the ZvZ and DVG and like spectrum of things, and most people didn't understand or didn't like it. It still did pretty well, but it was a fun experiment. The last tier list I did was a little bit ago. And a lot of things changed and a lot of things gonna change. So again, I want to reflect on what's going on right now and try to plan like what's gonna happen in the game because there's a lot of things that's gonna change. More people are gonna get legendary gear. Tier 3 is gonna release, and the biggest thing of everything, Alliance is gonna change from 4 guilds to 2 guilds, and that's a big, like gigantic change in the game pacing in the ZvZ scenario and the PvP mass PvP overall. So I want to try to predict how things are gonna go. The first thing I want to say is that definitely a lot of things are gonna change, and definitely a lot of things here are not gonna be correct. I imagine because we're also gonna get orb, and the orb could change the offensive and defensive game and the party structure and systems that we know a lot. For sure will change a lot because that's what the devs at least looks like they plan to make with the weapon, making more field-based, skill-based suppression and more buffs, debuffs, and I imagine it's gonna change a lot of how the game operates. But let's try to predict what's gonna happen. The first thing is more people are gonna get their legendaries and get their legendaries leveled. That's one thing that we know for a fact. Most people already leveled the weapon, or tanks slash tankish class level their their armor instead. And as the game develops, more people are gonna end up developing more of their armor because most people develop their weapon, right? So I expect the legendary aspect should help on the defensive side more than the offensive side from now on. So defensives are gonna grow, but on the start of tier 3, as the alliance is gonna change, I expect the offensives to grow because that's what happened on tier 1, that's what happened on tier 2. When new gear releases, usually the offensive side is the first one that is invested, and therefore everyone does a lot more damage. And then the defensive side catch up and increase, and then more systems are added, which usually end up benefiting more of the defensive side. So I'm very curious to see what's gonna happen, but I imagine even with the offensive increasing, the system changing from 4 guilds to guilds is gonna force everyone to change the party, not the party, but like the meta that revolves around the ZvZ and going more towards a GVG. So this list is gonna be more focused on the ZvZ. I just want to put that out there. Uh, but I think the ZvZ composition is gonna change to more small scale slash GVG scale type of compositions because it's gonna be way more important to play in a group, to survive in a group, to set a piece of terrain for your blob to survive and stand and get contribution or like play around that than to go inside the middle of the chaos to kill people and die. The more effective guilds, the more structured, the more organized guilds are not gonna be playing probably on the offensive. They're gonna more than likely play on the very defensive side and try to set up terrain that they will survive and establish themselves to keep getting contribution, to keep like to keep themselves alive and in the field to put pressure. Because if you think about it, on servers that usually have 2 to 3 alliances in a competitive scenario, usually there's not more than that, or like there's not that much competitive players more than that, because that's already 12 guilds. Uh, you're gonna have scenarios that's gonna be, instead of becoming 4 versus 4, it's gonna become 2 versus 2 versus 2 versus 2. And in scenarios that are 4 versus 4 versus 4, it's gonna become 2 versus 2 versus 2 versus 2 versus 2 versus 2. It's gonna be insane. It's gonna be insane. So you need to think that the amount of enemies that you have is gonna increase and the amount of lives is gonna decrease, which means the field is gonna become way more chaotic. Instead of being a 1 versus 1, it's gonna be a 1 versus 3. Which means even if the offensives increase on the start and overall like people try to play more offensive, the defensive is gonna be way more important so you can like have pressure. So with that in mind, I think all SNS classes, all of them are gonna increase a lot. So that's what I want to start. I think SNS1 as an offensive class is struggling right now. It's still playable, but it's struggling. I would personally put it on around B plus or A minus. because it's a noob stomper class and versus more competitive like high tier end game gears. It's gonna struggle a decent bit. It's still playable, but it's gonna struggle. But if you play that as a tankish and more defensive, I think on the new ZvZ meta is gonna be really strong. I'm putting on S tier straight up. GSSNS is the generic linker buff for everything. Is still insane. It's gonna be up there. I think SNS Dagger is a niche thing, but it's getting not popular, but it still works well for some shot color and some objectives. So I'm gonna be putting on B. I think Staff SNS is gonna grow up in popularity. I'm gonna put it on B as well because I think it's gonna be just by grabbing the SNS on your hand and popping your buffs and popping your damage reduction and like everything, it's gonna make you survive a lot more with the shield blockchains. And just having the staff is gonna allow you to dish some AoE damage. So as long as you're surviving and dishing damage and surviving and dishing damage, I think you're gonna be in a better position than just dishing damage and dying in the new uh, situation of the game on the ZvZs, of course. I think SNS Bow is a funny one, and I still think it's gonna have like some weight, like a little bit. It's not that decent. I think I would put on C plus actually, but since it's SNS, I just think everything's gonna be surrounded by SNS. I still think the card, even with the nerfs, is really good. Players that have still have the card and used to play card and used to do really well can still perform. It's not the same thing as before. It's not as good as before, but it's still really decent versus clumps. So I'm gonna put it up here. See next year for me. The SNS Spear is gonna be insanely better because not only there's a lot of more enemies, it's a very tankish class. It has a lot of survivability. You can play with the spectrum of agony from the SNS using the spear. I think this class is gonna be busted. I actually think this is gonna be one of the most insane class because you can get really high collision resistance and weaken resistance over and all the resistance overall, and that's going to be very important so you don't get your healing cut and other things, and you can keep surviving. And with this the agony and the javelin from the spear, you're actually going to become a unit that has a lot of resistance, is decently tankish, and you can dish a lot of damage around you. So I actually think it's going to be one of the best classes on the new 2 versus 2 versus 2 versus 2, if it's not even more, because depending on your server side or the amount of alliance. I think one bow is still gonna be like goaded. There's nothing you can do. It's just goaded. Maybe the orb can like be on as good as like alpha class, but I still think one bow is gonna be like one of the best classes. There's just too much healing over time and healing directly healing that you cannot do much about it. The clings, the defensive buffs. It's just there's not much that you can do about it, and I don't think Orb is gonna displace that as much as people think. One staff Invocator, I think it's a cool class to play. I think it has some defensives, but it's mostly a PvE class. On PvP, it's gonna be way more chaotic than before. If you have a proper party, proper setup to keep yourself alive with a PvP build, I think it's gonna be decent. But overall, I still think it's gonna be C tier for me because I don't think most of the players, is gonna be able to pull that off, and I think most of the competitive players would rather play other classes. One Dagger, I still think it's decentlish, but just like I said for the Templar curses that are DPS, SNS ones, its curses are struggling right now, and we already have the legendary one, and I think defenses are only going to increase. So I actually think it's going to struggle even more, and I don't think a new 1 DPS is going to do much about it. If we do get a new 1 DPS, and the E.Tevent, like Jacob said, maybe becoming less relevant, is something that really worries me, and I think this class is in a really dangerous position right now to not be very playable in tier 2, which makes me really sad and I'm very worried, but it is what it is. One bow, I think it's a really fun PvE class, probably one of the best, but I think for PvP it's just terrible. I'm gonna be putting on C tier. One spear, again, fun class, interesting, but I don't think it's decent for PvP. F tier. I suspect a little bit one and combinations of one could be viable because like you said, defensives maybe gonna be more important than offensives. Maybe not for sure gonna be more important than offensives. So maybe having a one as your offhand support, your secondary weapon, could be something interesting to have more healing pools on the floor, more angelic blast barriers, more healing and protection and buffs, defensive buffs overall. But it's a lot of you know, I don't know if it's gonna become that much more important to the point that you would not want to use a dagger instead. So definitely gonna leave those there because I don't think it's that good. GS dagger, I think it's B plus or A minus, bottom A tier. And a lot of people gonna get angry, but I think GS Dagger is a pretty big noob stomper class. It's a class that is a status check and just one taps you if you don't have the status to combat it. There's not that much counter gameplay to it unless you can hit the first parry and not get prone. But it's basically a status check. The function for it is most of the time just to play around flank or play pick off with E.Tevent Dagger and just keep refreshing the E.Tevent Dagger from picks of like important slash glass cannon slash players that don't have endurance, mostly evasion players, right? Because they usually play with high hit. They just fish the evasion players with one tap and restart, so they're like of a pick off slash sniper class, right? So I would put them still in A tier, but I think on ZvZ scenario is gonna struggle a lot. That's why I was thinking of putting on B tier, but I think it still could have a spot on A tier because it's a strong class. I think gladiators are still S tier to me. They have decent status. They have decent like buff slash survivability. They can build all rounder decently. I think SNS Spear is gonna beat GS Spear by quite a bit, but I think GS Spear still have a spot in either A plus or S tier, S minus tier. I think it's a really strong class. I actually cannot put on the same tier as GS Dagger. I don't think it's fair. GS Bow, I don't think it's gonna work. Uh, Same thing for GS staff. I just don't think having Bow or like GS as your secondary for damage is ever gonna be worth it. Maybe GS Bow can be like uh, similar to Paladin support-ish, so maybe it can be like C or B or even A tier maybe, but I have never seen anyone running this. So unless someone shows me the true potential of it, I still think it's gonna be low tier. But I could be wrong. I hope to be wrong. Honestly, I love seeing new things. GS Expo, same thing. I don't see why you would play that instead of like GS Dagger or Expo Dagger. GS One, I actually think is gonna be S tier. I think defensives and the link plus the healing and the blessed of the one makes it an insanely good secondary support. If you have a one bow and a GS one on your party, it's really helpful. Like, of course, if you can have two healers and one linker, it's very strong. It's still mostly ideal. But also having like two healers and one linker, or one healer and one linker with the paladin is still amazing for a party like survivability. So I still think it's S tier. Spear Dagger is definitely S tier. It's just the clump killer. It's just one of those classes that are always going to be relevant on ZvZ. It's fast clump killer. It's really strong overall. Like it's insane, honestly. Uh, Spear Expo niche. I don't know how it could fit. Staff Dagger, probably the best A plus to S minus class. Is mega solid in every aspect of the game. Can be good as single target. Can be good as tank killer. Can be good as AOE killer. Can be good as the buffer. Has decent survivability. It's an all rounder. Probably should be on S tier, but there's so many things on S tier, so I'm gonna put on A plus. I still think it's gonna be one of the best weapons in the new ZvZ. I think maybe no, I'm gonna leave it there for now, but just know that it's decent. Staff Spear, I'm gonna put on F tier because I don't know what you would do with that. Like I said, the only problem with all of those is that there are cool combinations, and I can imagine combos that you can do. For example, jumping with the spear and spinning, or maybe resetting your guillotine or your dash with the sword twice and popping, I don't know, double of the cardio smoke or double the Tavern floor damage thing. I don't know, just guessing what maybe you can do, but I have not seen anyone do something like that, so it's really hard to judge it. It's just theorycraft and concepts and spending to get to the point that is maybe viable is like taking a blind shot, same thing that was for Darkblight for me, I guess. So yeah, it's really hard. Staff X-Bow, same thing. I don't know why you would run that instead of other things. And PvE is really good, but there again, this is mostly a ZvZ list for PvP. Bow Dagger, a lot of people think it's F tier, a lot of people think it's C tier, a lot of people think it's gonna be B tier because it's decent. I would rate it A tier, in front of the GS Dagger. And before a lot of people try to find and murder me, let me explain. The function for the GS Dagger a lot of times is peeling inside of their blob, killing whatever flanker getting there, whatever like person that they can one shot that wants to do a big damage on your blob. So for example, a spear dagger that maybe get too close to your blob, the GS Dagger can pick it off, or it's gonna be playing a more flankish position to remove people from like reflux or respawn or whatever, or it's gonna be playing more of a protection overall for anything really, or more of a pick off to, that you can pick priority targets and re-stealth. But Bow Dagger does all of those things right now, similar-ish, with the E.Tevent Awaken Bow and the buffs that he got recently. And the Legendary, it can do all of that from ranged, and it can pick high ground like mega easily. So if there's someone on high ground that is playing Staff Dagger or even Darkblighter like me, one dagger, the Bow Dagger can just look at that guy and almost instantly pop the guy. It's crazy because usually high ground is not gonna be almost the entire time with their healer or their tank peeling them, linking them. So if they are not paying much attention and they don't have quick fingers or parry slash smokes, boulders can like insta cast like and the guy's dead. And the cooldown is really short, so even if they don't kill on the first rotation, they can just repeat the rotation before your smokes back up, or even on your invisibility, they can do the final shot thing. I don't know the name, the big arrow that they charge that can one tap you. So it's really strong right now, actually. I see a lot of people say, haha, me, because I think that was the situation for the last few months. It was like, oh, this class is terrible. And it was true, it was terrible, right? It was like struggling to do anything and everything. But I think the position it has right now with the Legendary Ball and the Awakened Tavern and the other passes that he got, like to increase the base damage, it's pretty strong. I actually think it's pretty strong. I think it's on mid of A tier to. No, it's on the mid of A tier for me. I think it's gonna be a really solid class to have overall to pick important targets, to take away high ground, or to play from high ground. Sadly, it's still single target most of the time, even though it has some skills like Flash Wave that can do some damage. It's just much worse than, for example, Staff Dagger, but it's a great counter for Staff Daggers or like classes that are more glass cannon-ish. It can like really quickly get rid of Spear Daggers slash Staff Daggers that are either off position or like behind enemy lines from like without them expecting from render distance and a lot of things. I actually think Bow Dagger is really solid right now, and I think I wish you should see more Bow Daggers popping in the game, which I don't like, to be honest. I hate Bow Dagger, but I think it's a real thing that's happening. Bow Spear, I don't know, maybe you can reset something with it, jumping, and I don't know, maybe it can be an interesting extra support engager, but I don't like it. Bow Staff, Liberator, it's the same boat as one staff, honestly. It's just AoE damage, great for ZvZs, great for PvE, great for siege or defensive positions from high ground, but it's usually mega squishy, mega easy to take off, and struggles in scenarios. So in a situation that is gonna be 1 versus 3, 2 versus 2, 2 versus 2 versus 2, right? It's gonna be even harder to survive. If you have a proper party and proper setup and dedicated pockets and linkers and everything, still gonna do decent. But I think it's definitely one of those classes that will struggle. I wonder if those two, Liberating Invocator, is gonna do better than I expect because there's gonna be more enemies now. But I still think because there's gonna be more enemies, defensive is gonna be more important, and I think those classes really struggle in the defensive side. Even though you can kind of adapt to it, they don't have many tools like invisibility, smoke, like repositioning with Shadow Step even and things like that. So I think they might struggle a little bit, and I'm very curious to see their position in the new ZvZ meta. Bow X Bow is similar to Bow Dagger, but usually worse in every respect when it comes to the defensive side. It's just like X Bow is not a really good secondary, or I don't think Bow is a good secondary for the X Bow. Uh, like I said, I would rather just play Dagger than any of those secondary options. It just Dagger as secondary is like SNS for secondary, is just too strong. Should not play it. The Dagger is great offensive and defensive, and the SNS is just the best defensive overall as secondary. The X-Bow Dagger is going to be in front of the X-Bow, or the Bow Dagger in front of the GS Dagger, even though the functions they have is very similar. The Bow Dagger and GS Dagger are usually to pick some things off. Sometimes the GS has the peeling aspect as well mixed in, but usually it's like pick off enemy targets on the blobs or healers that are close to the blob or reflexes, right? Like people respawning. So the X-Bow, the benefit that I'm putting here is because it usually has more defensives than those two because it has better evasions and cleans of the sea. Of course, it's a lot more skill based and like X-Bow daggers. Yeah, now good X-Bow dagger is gonna be way more efficient, insanely more efficient than a normal X-Bow dagger. But the time to kill from it, even though it has some like low time right now, like time that it cannot kill, right, compared to using Deckman, and maybe that's gonna change on tier 3, I don't know. It has such insanely quick time to kill that it can like pop 2 to 3 people in a row, like in a sequence mega fast. If they know what they're doing, they target you, they get the squishy that they know either doesn't have enough evasion or like has mid evasion to the point that doesn't matter because they attack so quickly it doesn't matter. So they can melt you, can melt your healer. They will struggle with tanks, thankfully, like tanks with the reflex slash damage reduction and other things of SNS make their life hell. So but for healers and DPSs, glass cannonish, they are absolutely a menace. So I think this is my tier list for now. I think this is gonna be interesting to see how it holds with the Orb release, with the tier 3 release, with the ZvZ true changes to 2 guilds. But I think this is gonna be something that you're gonna be seeing almost everywhere. This is similar-ish to what we have right now, to be honest, but there is a few core difference here, which is I'm putting basically all the defensive things or like the blob killers that are on top because I actually think the defensive is gonna definitely be a really important thing. I'm very curious to see if SNS staff starts popping because I actually think it's gonna start popping. But that's about it. Thank you for watching. See ya. Oh, again, it's just my opinion. Please don't hate me. Don't murder me. I'm sorry I put Bow Dagger so high up. If you disagree, that's totally fine. And that's about it. Thank you for watching again. Don't murder me.